to From the Source podcast, episode 35. Now, today's going to be a bit of it's going to be a quick one actually, but it's just going to be based around recovery, foam rolling, Theragunning. I've started using Theragun a bit more. My calves usually susceptible of feeling tight and stuff, so that helps. So this is just for all the foam rollers or the Theragunners out there. This is kind of a way to help mobility or just help a bit of recovery. So kind of mobility is the most talked about part of after training, and kind of foam rolling is something that people do. Theragun's something that other people do as well, but it's kind of a little area that is either misunderstood or applied at the wrong time. So like I said, it's just going to be a short one, a little bit of a practical kind of guide, if you will, when to do it, how long it kind of should take or how long you should be doing it for, which areas kind of matter most, which, that could be specific to like body parts and things, and then kind of the difference between dynamic and static stretching and when you kind of should be doing them. So like foam rolling isn't to, quote unquote fix your muscles. It's not about breaking down those massive knots that you sometimes feel that kind of a sports masseuse can do, or a physio and stuff like that. It's kind of purpose alongside the Theragunning as well as the foam rolling. It's just help kind of reduce some of that stiffness. And kind of, I don't really tend to do much of the foam rolling, because some parts is actually really painful, putting your body weight on certain areas. So Theragunning is a lot easier. You can decide really the pressure a lot easier anyway. But so for me, the foam roll, the Theragunning, when I'm doing my calves, it obviously helps with reducing the stiffness. So that time where I've done a few runs and I've started running, and I can just feel like I have not got any push off on my calves, or they just feel really stiff. It just helps free them up. It's the same with foam rolling, but most of the time I'm kind of running from parked car or something, so I'm not going to foam roll on the pavement. So having the Theragun there just to quickly just blast it really helps. And I only really do it for 5-10 minutes. I used to kind of do it in front of the TV. You can be sat at home relaxing and stuff. You don't have to be in comparison to the foam roll, that you don't have to be in a lot of space rolling about, looking a bit of a weirdo. So it's not like a full-on session. It's just 5-10 minutes, and that can be before you're training. But before you're training, you just want to be doing quite light. You don't want to, say Theragun for example, you don't want it on the top speed, really digging into your legs. It's just on low speed, just focusing on 20 seconds in a certain area, 20 seconds in another area, just loosely warming things up, which will obviously help tightness and stuff. But after training, and when the body's been abused, if you will, injured by the training sessions that you've done, it's more of a slower, more relaxed kind of environment that you should be foam rolling and Theragunning in. Slow movements. It's obviously going to help the recovery. You don't want to damage the muscles lifting weights or running and then absolutely hammer them on top speed as well, doing the Theragunning or the foam rolling. So it's do it specifically to kind of how you feel, and obviously you'll all know your bodies better than what I will. And kind of once you understand that the foam rolling and the Theragun is short sessions, you'll benefit more from it. Because I see people do full-on mobility stretching sessions, which is great, on rest days, and stretching and doing the yoga is a lot different to foam rolling and putting your body through pain using Theraguns and stuff. So be careful of that. Be conscious of what you're doing. Now, I've put down some some common tight spots, and this is really for runners, but it's probably also for people who are just lifting weights in general, but usually runners, you're going to get tight calves, which, when you get cramp in your calves, it's very painful and you pretty much can't run. Cramp in your glutes and stuff, or tight spots in your glutes. Glutes are common, obviously, for running. It's your stabilizers and stuff. You won't feel a lot of pain all day, but it's when you go to stretch your glutes and stuff, you're like, oh god, that's tight. And then other common ones, obviously your quads, but they also, for most people I speak to, and me especially, I don't have tight spots in my quads that I can feel, but if I was to stretch or do any mobility tests and stuff, it's very apparent that kind of glutes, quads, hips are kind of quite stiff, really. I kind of just mainly focus on my calves, really, and forget about what's going on in my glutes and glutes and quads. So calves usually tight in runners, kind of beginners and stuff. Beginners wise, it's usually down to poor trainer choice, too flat, not enough sponge in your trainers, running incorrectly, not up on your toes, just kind of just hammering your legs. But having the tight calves affect the balls of your feet, Achilles, and then if it's around the ankle joints and stuff, that just carries on up the body. Have soreness in your knees, have tight hips, have tight glutes, so it slowly makes its way up. So you have to be careful. Kind of calves are a good sign that there's other issues potentially going to come on down the line. Glutes tight from, like I said, running. Oh god, it's been a busy week, sorry. Tight glutes, all of us sit down now and again, but it's usually body positions that will make it tight. Running, left right, trying to balance yourself, glutes kind of keeping your core and everything, just central. Squatting, if obviously you're lifting weights just in general or just for your running, and then the general lifting as well that you'll get, that you use your glutes for, that you don't even realise, just picking up your shopping and going up the stairs and coming down the stairs and everything else. So glutes are a massive part of it. So if you're foam rolling, Theragunning your glutes is painful, so I probably wouldn't even start with that. Foam rolling, sitting on the roller, it's difficult in itself to get your balance, but it's more small movements backwards and forwards. A little tip is, once you find a bad spot in your glutes, you will know about it, so be careful. Don't put all your body weight through a glute. Small movements will really help it. And there's loads of videos, all these YouTube, these videos, there's loads of different stretches you can do with foam rolling, even without foam rolling. So I'm not going to go through all the stretches. And then quads and stuff is also a common spot. Like I said, that's obviously a lot from strength work and stuff if you're doing squats and leg exercises, but you'll have a lot of quad pain if you're doing long running distances. Obviously your quads have just been absolutely hammered on your feet for an hour and a half, whatever it is, training. My outside of my quads would always get tight. I'd feel it near the end of the run, probably because I knew I was going home and you're going to stop and stuff. And also foam rolling, if you are going to foam roll outside of your calves, that is painful as well. You have to be careful of your IT band as well, which is very tight. That's also a painful spot, so if you're on your side foam rolling, you'll know about it. And with that one again, small movements, don't go too low down towards your knee and stuff, very sensitive around there, and then up near your hip bone and stuff. Obviously it's bony, it's going to be painful. So those are some of the areas that you should be targeting. Foam rolling, Theragunning helps reduce some of that stiffness, but it's about little and often rather than just absolutely hammering them. and actually being in pain from like using the foam roller when you're lying on it, or putting the Theragun to your body and stuff. Obviously Theragun, you could put it on a really low setting and just slowly introduce it. It just really depends on if you want to be a foam roller or a Theragunner. Now, as I mentioned at the start, dynamic, static stretching. Dynamic is you are dynamic, you are moving, which involves movement. Static stretching is more static. You are kind of still, and it's about holding the stretch in certain positions. So like dynamic stretching, you see footballers on telly that are doing like heel flicks, kicking in the air. Static stretching is more just bending down, touching your toes, hold it for like 20-30 seconds. So before you start to train on your training days, you want to be prioritising dynamic stretching. So mimicking the movements that you're going to be doing when you're doing the exercises. So if you're running, like I said, it's leg swings, high knees, running up on your toes, coming up and down on your toes off a pavement, for example, whatever it is that mimics the exercise that you're going to be doing. And it prepares your body for obviously the movement. Whereas like your static stretching is stuff that you want to be doing like later in the day, or on your recovery days, just sat in front of the telly, just stretching. And that's just about, in general, you want to be using the static stretching to kind of lengthen those muscles and pull those fibers back out straight again. Whereas dynamic is like warming them up, ready for the exercise that you're going to be doing. And with the static stretching, obviously, holding them in certain positions for a certain amount of time and not doing it to the point where it's like extremely painful. Go to the point where you feel like it's stretching, hold it there, do 20-30 seconds, come back up, go back down again. You should be able to go a little bit further. And it's about, being able to do a little bit more every single time you stretch. And kind of, it's like a rule of thumb. If you're doing static stretching before a run, it's not scientifically, if you read the research, beneficial. You'll still feel just as stiff. Kind of, you're stretching the muscle, probably stretching it cold, which isn't really going to help it be elastic. Whereas a dynamic stretching, you're warming it up whilst you're also stretching it. So it's nowhere near as beneficial. Dynamic stretching before, static stretching after, so cool down and stuff like that. Just reading some of these show notes actually, because I've added in a quick 5-minute mobility routine for that beginners can use. But it's very simple, that probably a lot of people have been doing already. It's, I'm not going to tell everyone how to suck eggs, but you kind of just, it's the same as like lifting weights and stuff. Turn your stretching into like sets. So 30 seconds on one calf, 30 seconds on another calf, switching it, working your way from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom. Ankle rolls, ankle rocks and stuff are good for runners, preparing the ankles. So you're running, twist it on a pothole, twist it on a curb. If you've done a bit of prehab as well on those Bosu balls and stuff, you can strengthen the ankles to ready to like react to what's going on, reduces the amount of ankle rolls. Hip openers as well, that's a good one. So closing the gate, opening the gate, whatever you want to call it, body weight squats, really opening those joints out. And then quads and hamstrings and stuff. So there's loads and loads of mobility exercises, routines that are out there all over YouTube, TikTok, wherever you watch stuff. So I'm definitely not going to tell people how to stretch. It's easier just for you to watch a video. But you need to be doing your pre-workout stuff like I go on about, with like your lifting, warming up before you do your training sessions. So you want to wake the joints up, let them know what you're doing. A lot of people I've seen the gyms and stuff running, they're going out to the gym at 6 a.m, literally just going straight into a squatting session. You've been lying in bed all morning, you wake up, have a quick banana drive, half asleep, it's freezing outside, and then you just go straight to, let's just put 60 on and just warm up on that, Got to be careful. I know I go on about like warming up and stuff beforehand, but it is actually important, and, cooling down is equally just as important. You don't want to go from being really hot just to get straight in the car, sit down, seize up, then you're like pulling yourself out of the car. So, make sure you're using mobility, whatever you want to be doing. If that's just stretching, if that's, some people go to like the pool and stuff to recover as like a post-workout. If you've got the luxury of having a pool nearby or even in your home, then amazing. But, foam rolling, Theragun is the easiest thing for people to do now. Doesn't really require a lot. And you don't have to buy the official Theraguns. You can get loads of different brands. I think I've got like a Pulsio one, I think it is. Really easy, get all the attachment. I think it was like 50 quid. Easy. So kind of foam rolling and mobility doesn't need to be complicated or like time consuming. Like I said, it's just quick 5-10 minutes in front of the telly. Focus on the right areas, right movements, and don't really put yourself through it if you feel in pain. And you don't really need to do everything. Like, some nights I'll just do my calves if they're tight, or I'll just do my quads. You don't have to do all muscle groups in one night. Progressively just start with it. And if you're obviously new to running or new to the gym, kind of think about like your mobility, foam rolling, Theragunning and stuff as a bit of a, well, I was going to say like a bit of protection for your body, but it's like a prehab. It's a, it will prevent injuries down the line. Not I'm saying it'll stop all injuries and you'll never be injured, but 5 minutes of mobility every day will go a long way. So hopefully the recovery podcast today, episode, help some people. Like I said, I've said loads of times that warming up and warming down isn't really my strong suit, but I do try to do it where I can, and I kick myself when I don't do it as much as I should do, but that's life. Life gets in the way. So thank you for the support. I was going to say Happy New Year. We're 2 weeks into the new year now, so I'm not going to say that, but thank you for the support. Thank you for watching the videos, and I will see you on the next one.